when I kind of heard about the ruler, saw your videos about it, it just kind of hit home so like so hard. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I am, and that's what I'm all about.
It was like my whole entire life made sense. Stories my mom told about me as a kid made sense. You know, I had just done preschool tours with my 4-year, well, then she was 2, and all the other parents were asking about curriculum. And I was asking how many kids there were in the school and doing the math on what the school's annual revenues likely were, and was like, wow, y'all are great businesswomen. You know, it just is who I am.
So for me, it was a complete surprise that I was a ruler. I thought, being in such a caring profession and everything else, I would naturally come out as a nurturer. I really did think that that was the way that I was heading. But I think, obviously, nurturers kind of mother type figures, and what do mothers do? They rule their little empires, don't they? And I think really for me, that's what came through, this idea that, you know, as well as having that nurturing half of me, there's still the half that kind of counts the pennies, makes sure there's food in the cupboard, keeps building on ideas, keeps helping people growing, and keeps bringing those ideas coming through. So it was a surprise, but when I did kind of look and read through, it did make perfect sense for that kind of matriarch figure for me. So that's been something that I've connected with quite a lot, and it's been really a revelation for me, because it's allowed me to empower myself, and it also balances out a little bit of that nurturer tendency to overgive, because I think that there's a sense in all mothers at some point that you get a little frustrated with your kids, and you're like, I'm sick of tying your shoelaces for you. You need to tie them for yourself, kind of thing. So I think that's where that balance and that tension between the two can fit quite well together.
My reaction to being a ruler, I think the reaction was just like, oh, this is why everything is so hard, because I am living so out of alignment with who I am on an energetic level. So it was eye-opening, it was heart-opening, and it was transformational. My life is so different now. My business is designed completely different, and it was a result of the learning about the ruler, the alchemist, and the connector as well.
My reaction to the archetypes was, I was sort of in denial about being a ruler at first, and kind of did the test a few times, and thought, okay, I identified as an accumulator. Definitely, I was like, yes, that sounds like me. I love to stash away my coins and think about where I'm going to make more money, and found it really hard to spend money on myself. Sometimes I felt really guilty about that. And then my the accumulator and nurturer, were about the same. And then the next one after that is celebrity. So it felt a bit like they're all fighting around each other, you know, the wanting to be more of a ruler and a nurturer. And I think sort of thinking about like real life people, like Beyonce was like probably a ruler, you know, and building your empire and being that person, and not always being liked as well. That was all kind of part of Money Boot Camp as well, you know, that kind of understanding that you have to sort of be your true self, I think was really important. I think
it made so much sense. I mean, ruler and romantic are quite close, so sometimes I thought I'm rather a ruler because I'm rather a romantic, because I like to, I don't know, I like luxury a lot, and I like to I don't know how to like to I always think I earned this, yeah, so it's I deserve it, that's it. I deserve it, so that's what I think a lot. But then when I read the ruler one, it was so clear. That's totally me. It's like the I'm always thinking, okay, I could make this as a business maybe, or this as a business maybe. And if other people tell me like their ideas, I say, okay, so we're gonna do this, and you can make a business out of this. So it's like all the time I'm thinking a lot of how to make money out of everything. So yeah.
So I love that I'm last here in this, because I am pretty much on the other end of the spectrum, where I have, I think the lowest scores for me were connector and nurturer, and then it's ruler, maverick, and accumulator. And honestly, the thing that hit me first, it was like, yep, that's me. And I think you have, Denise, somewhere, like you mentioned, like I wanted an Oprah type business being a ruler. And I remember being like, oh, seen. And there was so many interesting little parts to that, because I didn't realize, I think the thing about maybe with just rulers in particular, but maybe it's everybody, the thing about my ruler was I didn't realize that I had been kind of partially holding that back a little bit. Like it was a part of me that it needed permission that I didn't realize needed permission to just be like, this is who I am. And the second part of that was when we did the Sacred Money Archetypes quiz. People are, sharing their answers, and all of these like lovely women that I know were like, oh, I'm a connector, I'm a nurturer, and I'm a whatever. And I was just like, am I a jerk? And I remember you, Denise, saying like, I'm a ruler. And like, I actually, like, I distinctly remember this, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but you were like, I love the people I work with, but at this, like in Money Bootcamp, like, I love all those people, but like, I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm not going to, like, that's just not me. Like, I think your connector was not your top either. And I remember just being like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm allowed to be this way. And it's not even a fault. It's just something that is just who I am, and I can outsource, this and this in my business. And it doesn't need to be this like character defect, like Sarah was saying, like, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just when we lean into what makes us us, what lights us up. And what lights me up is that idea of like that word empire. It's just like, oh shit, yes. And the other stuff, once I kind of got over that initial hit of shame of like, oh, I don't really have, like, it was like 2 or something, like, but connector and nurture vibe is just not there. But it doesn't mean I'm not caring. It doesn't mean I don't care about what I do or the people I work with, but really allowing myself to kind of embody that fully. And in particular, see models like you, Denise, who you just, it is who you are, and you don't make apologies for it. You're just like, oh, so then I do this, like I outsource this, or I try to angle my marketing towards these types of people, for example. Like, those insights is just, they were so incredibly helpful, because like I said, you don't realize that there's this tiny part of you, or maybe a big part, that is kind of seeking that permission. And then once you get that, like from, you see it reflected in somebody else, or you get this kind of on the quiz or whatever, you're like, oh, I didn't realize how much of myself I was holding back. And once you do that, that's where the power comes from, right? Like, once you can enable yourself to kind of be fully whole without apology, that is, of course, when things start to happen. But I was not surprised at all. And I have to mention, when I was talking to my husband about this, and we were watching Hamilton at the time, and there were 2 lines in Hamilton. There was one where it's like, why do you write like you're running out of time? So my husband was like, that's you. And I was like, oh yes. And then it was, he will never be satisfied. He's like, that is also you. And I was like, yeah, I get that. And I think that's like the ruler and accumulator together. But again, seeing that not as like not everything is something to be healed. Like, yes, there's overworking. Yes, there's overdoing and overgiving and hustler and all that stuff. But not everything in me was like because of a trauma or a problem. Seeing that is just like a strength that not everybody else has. And some people would love to kind of lean into seeing that and being like, yes, I have some of that Hamilton energy right there. That's okay. And allowing that to happen was just really, really huge for me.
So as I mentioned, during the pandemic, childcare was in a hot mess here, and I'm a single mom. The solution I came up with was to join the country club down the street, because their kids club was open. So like, now I have this kind of amazing workday ritual. She's back in school, but I drive her to school, and I pack up her stuff for school, and I pack up my stuff for country club. And I drive her to school, and I go get in the hot tub, and I do the steam room, and then I work. And I'm actually, funny enough, like, oddly organically creating like almost like an influencer relationship with the club, because I'm constantly like posting stuff there and shooting videos there and that sort of thing. But I just find myself working in very luxurious settings all the time. I do give myself a lot. I tend to my state a lot more than I think an average ruler might. I have a very long, I spend like 2 hours in the morning doing my own daily ritual practice before she even gets up. The first thing I do, like I don't do meetings till 10 o'clock because I kind of need to get there, get myself to that place of like really intense flow. But I do that almost in like service of my radical fruitfulness. Like I still do way more stuff, way more actual like output. But I tell you, I can no longer do it in that like productivity fetish way. Like for me, it's really matured in large part thanks to the archetype work. It's matured from this idea of product. I'm creating a program for companies called Radically Fruitful. So like leave productivity, this thing where I can't with spreadsheets. I have one accumulator. One accumulator point in my body. In fact, what you're saying is hilarious to me, because the thing about like romantics and accumulators getting married, because I actually surround myself with accumulators, because I feel like I don't know what would happen if like there is no accumulator in this household, and my kiddo, I think, probably has mostly the same archetypes as me. Maybe she's got like some high alchemist somewhere in there too. But between us, we just go around the world like manifesting stuff, thinking it, people handing it to us. Like I sat down the other day in the lobby at a hotel nearby, and the hotel manager came and just set 2 glasses of champagne down on the table. He didn't say anything. Like that's kind of how we roll. So we do flow energy and just flow beautiful things and need beautiful things. I need everything that is in, on, or around my body to be beautiful. But some of that, that again, it's in service of, or it's like, I think of it, I tell myself the story that it's like this virtuous cycle with my radical fruitfulness and like this radical ability to like answer my callings, which I think are very sacred.
I think I'm probably still in that shiny object syndrome mentality, that I really still find it difficult to say no to people when they say there's some interesting project, there's maybe no money in it, but it's going to take up loads of time. And I was doing a radio show every two hours every week. Absolutely loved doing it, and it was lots of good learnings, but hardly anyone was probably listening to it. But it was like so much fun for me to do. And, I will beat myself up over thinking I'm spending lots of time doing fun projects when I could be doing more on my business and making more money and doing more launches. But I do, I think that sometimes the part of me that I can't remember which one it is now, I think it's celebrities wanting to have pleasure, and allowing yourself to have pleasure is the thing that I fluctuate with, well, the accumulator doesn't want you to have fun, and and it wants you to just be thinking about your business all the time, but actually you can have some fun. So I try and do time audits every so often and cut out things that aren't fun. But yeah, it's taken me a while to sort of say no to things, or doing that thing of like what you were saying about being good at things, not over planning as well. So if there's something, I just need to show up and do the thing and go, and not do all the kind of stress thinking about it, or the over planning, or the creating the most beautiful slides possible for something that doesn't require it. And basically passing all of that on to my clients now, and realizing that a lot of people who are attracted to the work I do are perfectionists, or are stopping themselves because they're not feeling worthy when they have so much to give and they're already at the top of their game, and they're just working out how to leave a legacy rather than like building another business or another thing that they think they need to do. But you know, one big thing I think is one of the status symbols of success is to have like a fancy house. And I manifested, so the alchemist is there somewhere in my, I thought I'd be an alchemist and a connector because I do events and all this stuff. But I'd already manifested this house that I have in Brighton, kind of out of thin air, because people think I was flaky when I was even buying property, that I was able to do it myself, and I was a real control freak about it. And it's a house that's similar to the house that I grew up in. And it's kind of like now I realize that's not even that important to me. What's more important is clearing debts, and being mortgage free in the UK is like amazing, you know, like it's unheard of to be able to do this. So anyway, it's okay to change your goals is another thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, you know, we can have different goals. Anyway, it's just learning about yourself. It's kind of even difficult sometimes to admit things to yourself.
So with I was surprised that the alchemist was second, because I felt so aligned with that, like the problem solving, the ideas, like never being, you know, that I could just like sell sessions and be an idea person. Like that just resonated. I struggle with my connector. I'm an introvert, mostly because I think the world has made me feel like my extroverted side is too much. So the introvert, I would prefer to have like minimal contact. I don't necessarily want to be out there connecting people or having constant interaction with others. So at times I think my connector, like I need to kind of focus on the connector a little bit more and nurture that side of me, because I know it's in there. I know that the world has kind of shut it, like I've been guided to shut it down. But yeah, so I'm not necessarily, I think that the alchemist and the ruler complement one another quite beautifully, but that connector, it's like I would rather that not hear that message. I would rather not that be there sometimes.
It was all, business was all I'd kind of thought about. I remember I used to be a lawyer a long time ago. And I remember when I have an old set of kids, and I call them the old kids and a little one. And I remember an incident when my now 29-year-old was probably 5 or 6. And he was just standing in front of me and like, you know, stammering like little kids do, mom, 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 mom. And I was an hourly billing attorney at the time. And I remember like in my mind thinking, this is costing me like $75, $100. It was like this clock, you know what I mean? It was really, business was all I thought about. And I had this real pride that I used to tell people, you can drop me anywhere in the planet and I will have a profitable business. And give me 90 days. I don't need to speak the language, it's good. But my businesses were I was never really giving them the chance to mature. And I was never really giving myself the chance to mature into my businesses, because I would burn through people. I would burn through myself. If I was frustrated easily when something wasn't super successful, so I'd just make a new thing. And then, the maverick in me really wanted to make a new thing. I mean, I wanted to like reinvent every wheel. So there were some real, self-hindering patterns that I was able to spot pretty quickly.
The like asking for help is still so hard because I can do it all, you know, and yeah. So, but I've also learned delegating and outsourcing, and just like also kind of like canceling things that I really don't have to do. There really isn't a need to do it all. So yeah, that's been a huge one for me. And I've also kind of been feeling guilty about like being the kind of like the show pony, you know, and not doing all the work and not being there all the time to like help all the others and in a way controlling everything. So that's been kind of hard for me to just sit back and relax and let things be, really. Because in my business, I've built a really kind of like a successful model where I can just not be there and I know that the things will work, but it's been hard. It's been really hard. So.
Yeah, I was going through the course earlier today, and one of the things that came up was that you want a ruler for like that gentle butt kicking. And I was like, yep, that's okay. And I can recognize a lot of my sabotages around being a ruler. I don't actually think that the traits of the rulerness were the sabotage. It was my own sense of like shame over them, if that makes sense. Like it was the feeling of like, oh, I need to be more connectory, I need to be more nurturing or whatever, and not truly allowing myself to lean into my strengths there. Like the minute I hired out somebody to do like the nitty gritty tech stuff, like that was just a like huge level up for me, just being able to do that. And recognizing, I think you also say like, you know, we tend to do things the hard way or find the harder way to do things. And there's a line that you mentioned in it as well that was, you know, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And that for me, like I have a real love of learning. Like I love to know, oh, how does this work? How does this work? And I really had to start asking myself the question, say to myself, like, okay, you know, if you spent a few hours, you could figure this out. Like I could figure out how to set this up tech-wise, or I could figure out how to, you know, dig into this person's personality and figure out how to sell them or whatever. But I had to ask myself, do I want to get good at this task? Like, and if it wasn't something that actually appealed to me, I had to give myself permission to just either outsource it or, you know, 9 times out of 10, you could just not do that thing. And like your business is going to be fine. And in terms of like business models, it's funny, as I was going over them, all of the teacher model options for the ruler are things that I had inadvertently done over the course of my couple careers. Like I've had a few careers now. So like I've been the speaker, I've been the author, I've been the coach, but it's only in the context of like, I want to run a big kind of group empire and kind of dip in coaching call wise rather than like one-to-one. And one of the things that beforehand I struggled with that was definitely a sabotage was I was listening to, as I got into more of a coaching or mentoring perspective with like soul work and neuroscience, I knew what I wanted. Like my ruler was like, I envision this to be a massive, you know, global group community ecosystem where everybody's bringing their energy. And I could picture this thing like to a T, but all of the advice that there was like, oh, well, you can't do a group until you've outsold your one-to-one. Like that's kind of pretty common advice that we hear. And I remember there was a few weeks there where I kind of was on the fence about it. And it's the same feeling of like going to corporate. I could not stomach it. And it's like, it's not that I don't love my people that I work with. It's not that I don't think I could be good at it, because I had done one-to-one before kind of as one-offs and it was great, but it was that path of impact. And I was like, no, I'm really driven to do this as a group. Like I'm driven to do this program as a group. So that was kind of my moment of revelation where I had been sabotaging myself, spinning those wheels, wasting time, just like, oh, should I listen to so-and-so who loves one-to-one and therefore she's pitched, like, you know, telling me it's a great thing to do, or do I do what I know is right for me? And the minute I did that, like I launched that group program and, you know, talk about like money up levels, like I made, you know, close to $250,000 my first time out the gate. But I only think I could do that because I finally let myself lean into almost the satisfaction of how I felt it was okay for me to run my business, rather than, you know, listening to others, you know, really well-meaning advice. Like that advice could have been right for me, but maybe it was a ruler thing that I just kind of had a completely different vision, or maybe it was a bit of a maverick thing too, but there was something about that just didn't sit right. And I know that it was the shame kind of reflecting from when I was a kid, you know, oh, you're too big for your britches, right? Like, who are you to break the rules? And, you know, how dare you be a success on this thing when you haven't done the time? And like Sarah said, like, why would I start at the bottom? you know, and I know how that sounds. I can hear myself saying that. And I'm already thinking like, man, people are going to watch this and be like, wow. But like, it's not meant to be an arrogance. It's just, I know where I'm called and I know what I'm compelled to do, and allowing that to happen and letting that unfold. You know, like there's always hiccups and everything, but letting that unfold without feeling like I need to feel shame for it. And I realized, you know, in SMA, like you mentioned, we find a way to do things the hard way. And I think you can see that in two perspectives. Like one is like, we try to do everything ourselves, right? We try to do the tech, we try to do the funnel, we try to do every little thing. But I also think the other way of doing it the hard way is really just to like ignore your own tendencies. You know, like doing it the hard way for me would be like, well, I guess I better put up a sign outside my door and do one-to-one for the next 3 years. Like that would be the hard way for me. And I think there's a lot of kind of inner work we have to do to recognize, like, despite the fact that there's a learning curve and the natural hiccups of just, you know, growing in a business, it doesn't need to be this like long ass slog that people tell you it can. And it's not to say it's going to be an overnight success either, but why would you posit that as like a must have? Why does Sarah need to work 12 years in the nursing to get the top? Like, if you're good, you're good, you know? And I think that rulers, we seem to have, just from our conversation tonight, we seem to have this innate knowledge of what we're good at. And it's not everything, but like the things that do light us up. Yeah, like we just know. And if we can kind of lean into that. So I would say my biggest self-sabotages are not necessarily coming from the ruler like traits. It's not leaning into them without letting all the other conditioning, maybe the kind of guilt and stuff over not being the other archetypes, like looking outside the window being like, oh, but I'm not a connector, boo-hoo. Like you said, when you posted in Bootcamp once, Denise, about like, oh, that was Mara who sent that. Like it was like a freaking light went, and I was like, I can do that. Like I could just have somebody be kind on my behalf, and it's not a bad, like that was groundbreaking. Like honestly, it sounds so silly, but I was thinking like, oh my God, I don't have the bandwidth, especially with like a big group. Like I was like, how does she do it? And it's like, of course. And we love you all for it. Like we love you all the more for it, right? Like those little things of just allowing. And I like, now I know enough. I'll say to my husband, like, oh, this is a ruler thing. And I'm feeling guilt about this. Like I'm feeling like a bit of a jerk right now for kind of wanting to bulldoze through this here, because I don't want to wait. Like, you know, it's like, it's not a democracy, right? I want it and I want it now. And yes, we are in a world where patience is a virtue sometimes, but I also think as girls and women in particular, we're given that message enough. Like you said about your son, like he will have enough models of successful, lovely men who are rich. You know, it is also important for girls to get that too. And I think ruler women in particular maybe have a little bit more kind of up against them to kind of overcome. So yeah, that's my long-winded spiel about ruler sabotages. I don't think I've encountered a lot of sabotages from being a ruler. It's not leaning into it and letting all the other stuff kind of get in my way there.
I think that's why I struggle to hire anyone to support me in my business, and why I've been a one-woman show since day one. But things are quickly changing with that, like opening up to that. But I also find that with my clients come to me because of the ruler energy of the like, no, we're going to get this done. Like we're going to launch this business. We're not going to mess around. We're not going to work towards perfection. We're going to get it done. And sometimes I come up against, ooh, if I say it too forcefully, I'm too bossy, or I'm too, nudgy, like, are they going to stop liking me? Are they going to no longer work with me? When the reality is that's what they need. And that's why they're coming to me. So I've stepped into it. It was a mindset shift I had to have, and definitely this supported that for sure.
I've noticed that it's quite hard for me to focus on one product, and it's so hard to launch because it's so hard for me to talk, 3 weeks, 4 weeks about just one thing, because I thought, okay, you've seen your offer, you can book there, and now just move on. Let's do the next thing. And that's so hard because I'm launching at the moment and it's 2 weeks time. And I'm just like, okay, I want to stop now and do the next thing and do the next thing. And so that's quite hard for me. I think that's a sabotage. The doing things the hard way. I think I don't have this so much because of my romantic side. So that's not very strong with me. So I like to do it the easy way. That's very strong. But this, the focusing and like you said, patient is a strategy, not a virtue. It's maybe that's a good one for me, because I'm impatient because I'm quick. I'm a quick decision maker. So I think, okay, so you've seen it. Why don't you just go ahead and we can move on? We don't have to talk about this anymore, because I mean, I've shown you everything. And that's probably one thing which is hard. And but I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to focus on one and not to step aside and post something else and do this and that. And when I started the business, I also did, somebody said before, like I can do a lot. I can help a lot with a lot of technical stuff. So I did everything, and then I noticed, okay, that's not what I want to do, and I'm not a done for you girl either. It doesn't work out for me at all. It's I'm sitting here and I don't want to do the work. If I can teach you, I mean, we can do live coaching. I can show you everything. I can teach you everything. That's fine. But sitting at home and doing the stuff for other people doesn't fulfill me anymore. So that's maybe something, what I've learned and what I didn't know in the beginning, but now I know. So I'm trying not to sabotage me anymore.
SMA is going to open up a lot of doors, and understanding who you are energetically and how you can align to that within your business, within your relationships, within your home is going to change things. It's going to make everything feel so much easier and so much more fluid.
Okay, for me, it opened up so many things, and it made, I don't know, I always felt like I'm strange, I'm different, like from everybody else. And so when I came into this group and when I read all the articles about the ruler, I thought, okay, that's me, and others are like me, so it's okay to be like this. That was quite good. So that's in overall was, I don't know, it doesn't depend on if you're a ruler or not, but that was quite eye-opening, I'd say. And it helps so much to reflect yourself, and then also to choose the right business for you. Like, as I said, done for you didn't work out. So I'm doing coaching now. That's quite a thing, I think. And also what you do, like the marketing part. So for me, it's hard to talk to others because I'm like, as I said, I'm quick. So I tell you, okay, that's the offer. Take it or leave it, and then we can move on. But I know other people, they need more information. They need like, okay, we're gonna love each other and whatever, like doing this. and you've got this I don't know, it was a part where you said, okay, if you want to advertise or market to a nurturer, then you have to do it like this. And if you want to market to a maverick, do it like this. And this helped me a lot because as a ruler, I'm like, as I said, quick, easy decision making and everything. So I don't see the problems of others maybe. And this helped me a lot to get to know the other archetypes as well, especially from the marketing point of view.